We're starting our series of shiurim on siddur dach with the Maamar Ani b'tzedek echazar panecha. This Maamar can be found in the Shar Tefillah on page 42 at the bottom of the second column. This pasuk, Ani b'tzedek, is the last pasuk in the 17th chapter of Tehillim. It translates that I with righteousness will see your face. And generally speaking, especially in Hebrew, righteousness has a certain connotation of those specific things that we've done, the merits that we have acquired for ourselves, which slightly leads to a contradiction on an Agada in Bava Metzia. As the Alter Rebbe will begin, Hine Amru Rabbeinu Zichronim Livracha Lo Charva Yerushalayim Ele B'nei Sha'amidu Divreihem Al Din Torah. Yerushalayim was not destroyed except for the reason that they based their words strictly on the laws of Torah. Hine Lechora Einu Muvan. Now, apparently it's not intelligible that Yerushalayim should be destroyed for such a minor sin. Ve'od. And further, what's the sin that they relied on the laws of Torah? Are the laws of Torah not straight? And if we should say that they were punished simply because they didn't go above and beyond the letter of the law, for this they wouldn't. How can you punish somebody so severely for something so minor? Even if we should say that they're required to. For several reasons, this very surprising agada, very surprising statement of our sages, can be illustrated and built upon in several ways. Among them, generally speaking in Paiskim, so long as an individual has an authority to rely upon him, even the Beis Din, except in special circumstances, does not have the authority to force him to desist and rely on another opinion. Not only that, there's a very long discussion as to whether or not the Beis Din even has the authority to tell two individuals who came in front of them that you're required to pay, despite the fact that you should be obligated. There was once a case, you had two poor porters who were carrying some materials for a rich man, and they broke. And the rich man came and dragged them in front of a court and said, I want my money. They broke it. They caused me damages. And the Beis Din spoke to the man, and it became clear that he was poor, and that if he didn't receive his day's wages, his family wouldn't have anything to eat. So therefore, in this specific case, Chazal told the man that you have to pay him. You have to pay him his wages, and no, he's not going to compensate you for anything that he broke. And yet, it's a little bit difficult, because according to Chassidut and the Kabbalah, that Hashem, before He created the world, looked into the Torah, and when He saw Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, Hashem created the heaven and earth. So if the Torah and its laws are the foundation of the world, it doesn't make sense that the world could be destroyed by choosing to rely on those laws. So the Alter Rebbe is going to come and explain to us the nature of Gvuros. Generally speaking, we have three lines. Chesed, the right side, which is kindness, an expansive quality. Gevura on the left side, which is severity, strict laws, and in the middle you have the concept of the Berech HaTichon, the middle way, which is often translated from Rachamim to mercy. So, Ach ineh ha'inyan hu, didin Torah hu midat din al kol panim, hu midat din nikra emet. Now, the idea is that the laws of Torah are the strict letter of the law at their very least. And the strict letter of the law is something that we call truth. Obviously, generally speaking, if he's obligated, he's obligated. If he's not, he's not. V'yadua de'emet amar al yivrah lefi shukulam ale sheker. There is an agada from our sages that when Hashem created the world, he consulted with the angels. And when he asked the attribute of truth, whether or not he should create the world, it said no. The world is full of lies. Even Chazal sometimes refer to our world as Alma di Shichra, world of lies. And then we continue. The Chesed Amar Yivra, and the quality of Chesed, of kindness, said create it. Lefi Shukulam Ale Chasedim, for it's entirely filled with kindnesses. The Chesiv Chesed Hashem Malah Haaretz Shukol Ha'olam Malei Chasedim. We have a pasuk that Hashem's kindness fills the world because the entire world is filled with His kindnesses. Va'emet Shuhu Midat Din Eno Nisbal B'Bnei Adam. And truth, which is the strict letter of the law, the truth, which is Midat Din, the quality of severities, Eno Nisbal B'Bnei Adam, isn't something that people tolerate. And now the Alter Rebbe is going to bring an interesting illustration. Kamo she'anu ro'im b'din Torah, b'dinei Torah, as we see in judgment. שגם אם יתחייב אדם על פי דין, הנה איננו מקבל עליו החיוב ברצון. Even if a person in a court case is told that you're culpable, you're obligated to pay him, you did him damages, it's your fault, he doesn't receive that obligation willingly. He'll fight it. Even if it's obvious that he's at fault, he will continue to claim, I am innocent for such and such reason. Even though that it's known, that the truth is known, and the letter of the law obligates him. In any case, his heart is not, can't take it. And the letter of the law is not, it's not loved, even though it's true. There is a poignant story in the Shas, in Masechet Yuma, that the world was destroyed, that Yerushalayim was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam. There was an incident involving a man called Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. He made a big party, a very big party in Yerushalayim, and invited a whole number of people. And one of these guests had a name that was very similar to the person he hated most in the entire world. And so instead of the invitation going to his friend, it went to the person that he hated. When he saw his enemy at the party, he said, "Get up, leave, I don't want you here. I didn't invite you." And the man said, "Don't embarrass me in front of all of these people. I will pay for half of the meal. Don't throw me out." And the man said, "I don't care. I don't like you. You've done such and such and such things to me. I don't want to see you at my party." So in the end, he threw him out. And this man decided to go all the way to the Kaiser in Rome and tell him that the Jews are planning to rebel against you and they hate you. He went off and told him, "What's my proof? If you send a sacrifice, a korban, to Yerushalayim, they will not accept it." So the emperor said, "This is a very serious crime. Let's see." He sent a sacrifice, a perfect sacrifice, a completely perfect sacrifice to Yerushalayim with this man who informed him. And on the way, he made a small nick. If I remember correctly, it was in the eye, something that, according to Roman custom, doesn't disqualify a sacrifice, but according to Jewish custom, it does. They came to Yerushalayim, they deliberated a little bit, and in the end they decided not to accept it because it wasn't fit for the Mizbeach. So the report came back to the emperor, and the emperor said, "They're rebelling, destroy them." Likewise, it's unfathomable that this relationship between these two men could have been on nothing. He did something to him. And yet, because of such a minor hate, because of such an obligation, one wasn't willing to accept it. And by means of that, Yerushalayim was destroyed. V'alkein charava Yerushalayim lefisha midat hadin. And therefore, Yerushalayim was destroyed because they relied strictly on the letter of the law. In two places here. One, Midat Hadin has two explanations. One is the letter of the law, and the second one is a strict evaluation of the situation. The person who made this individual, famous individual who made the invite and saw his enemy come in, he could have said, "Okay, you know what? Fine, I'll take the money. I'll let you stay here. I won't embarrass you." He didn't have to stand. He didn't have to decide to stick to his personal grudge against this individual in front of all of the great people of Yerushalayim. Likewise, when the sacrifice came back, Chazal said that it would have been better for them to sacrifice the unfit animal on the Mizbeach, on the altar, just so that the emperor wouldn't have come and destroyed Yerushalayim. We have a concept of Horat Sha'ah, that because of the needs of the hour, we are going to, so to speak, look away from the law and do something that otherwise we might have said was not according to the law. But because they decided to act strictly according to what the law says they should have done without thinking about the possible consequences, Yerushalayim was destroyed. Shuhu ha'emet ve'ein l'midah zo kiyum. The midat hadin is the truth, and this quality doesn't have any ability to continue existing. Likewise, it says regarding that in the beginning Hashem wanted to create the world according to midat hadin, according to the Gevuros and according to the actions of each individual. The result was the flood. Ela tzarich liyot hanhaga b'midat hachesed. But the direction, the deciding factors in our actions needs to be the quality of kindness, which would have said, you know what, the emperor sent it, he's a very powerful man, the consequences could be very great. At least he sent the sacrifice, let's sacrifice it. Lifnim mishur sedin, above the letter of the law. Vaf al pi she'en ze emet, Lefi shachesed amar yivra. Even though this quality isn't true, it is a lie, factually speaking. If he would have maintained this individual in his party, people might have come to the false conclusion that he was his friend, and it wasn't so. And certainly, according to the law, he had no obligation to maintain him. V'day lemevin, and it's already and it's sufficient. Uvior shor shedavarim, and to explain the roots of this concept. Hine, Yisab Zohar, it's found in the Zohar. Teresha de Esav bat Fohi di Yitzchak. The source of Esav, Yitzchak's eldest son, is within Yitzchak, his father. Ki Esav lemata ki Yitzchak shoshohu bechinat gvura. We have three fathers: Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Abraham is midat chesed. It said that anybody who came by, he would give him everything he wanted, so long as he would say thank you to Hashem, because Hashem is the creator of everything. Yitzchak was Gvuros. It says that all of the students that Abraham Avinu collected, Yitzchak threw them all out, because none of them were up to his standards. Who's Bechinat Gvura de Kedusha, Bebechinat Ha'atzilut, V'yatza Memenu Esav Lamata, Shehu Pesolet HaGvura, V'nikra Atocha D'Da'ava, Pesolet HaZahav Lachar Shenivra Hanaki. The Zohar makes a comparison between a connection between Yitzchak and Esav. Yitzchak is from the Gvuros, from the quality of severity, and so is Esav. So, according to the Zohar, the difference between Yitzchak, who was a tzaddik, and Esav, who was really quite the rasha, is that Esav is rooted in the slag that comes off the gold when we purify it. The comparison, to bring the illustration, to expound upon the illustration somewhat, in olden times when gold was purified, you took a rock which had a good portion of gold in it, and you had something called a crucible. A crucible is, generally speaking, a little earthenware vessel with a cap on top of it, and you place solid materials into it and heat them in order to melt them or to cause various reactions inside. One of the consequences of this is that because gold is very, very heavy, when you melt it, the component materials of the mineral that you place inside separate. The gold remains below, and the impurities float on top. And most crucibles have a little spout that you can use to pour these impurities out of the gold, and what remains is pure gold. So something we're actually going to explain in great depth in the Maamar on Purim is regarding the issue of the Nachash HaKadmoni, the primordial snake, and the qualities of Tohu, which, generally speaking, are related to Esav. Esav's root was in the Gvuros, which were, if you did something bad with him, fine, he would treat you accordingly, with great anger and great retribution. If you'd done him a favor, certainly he would recognize the favor and give you whatever compensation was appropriate for the favor, for the good that you did for him. Now, according to the Kabbalah, when any of these various qualities, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Netzachod, and Yesod, these six midot, are in their purest form, generally speaking, they don't lead to anything good. The above mentioned example of Avram Avinu, when he had no problem giving guns to terrorists. So long as they said thank you to God for the guns, it wasn't a problem as far as he was concerned. Yitzchak never would have done such a thing. But likewise, as we've already started to explain, the quality of severity, even though perhaps this terrorist shouldn't have guns, and he himself knows exactly what he plans to do with them, should he find himself refuse the gun, he may well still get angry at the person who refused him the gun, even though he knows that the person who refused him the gun didn't give it to him because it endangered his own life. And he may kill him. He may decide to kill him. Later we'll expound upon this concept a little bit more, but certainly where everybody looks for only faults, there are plenty of faults to be found. Likewise, the quality of Netzach Hod and Yesod, which we'll have to leave for a little bit later time. So, Esav, generally speaking, is related to this concept of Tohu, which we call in Kabbalah Tohu, which is a purity of each of these materials by themselves, without any admixture of any other quality. And it should be obvious that when every single factor operates independently without any regard or any respect for anything else, existence is very difficult. So that is somewhat the example, is that Yitzchak is these various materials which were, Esav, are these various materials which were burned off from the gold in the process of purifying it. All of these, each one, generally speaking, now is separate from every other. Each one is recognizable by itself because the heat separates it turns it into a liquid. The liquid allows them to differentiate according to their mass, according to their density. And that's the quality of what we call Gvura de Klipos. Granted, this sort of Gvura, which is strictly related to the actions of other individuals, strictly related to the facts on the ground, so to speak, isn't necessarily inherently bad, but when pursued for its own sake, it's not difficult to see where it will bring us to problems. V'hu b'chinat rad noga, k'mo hartzicha v'chahai gavna, שנולד מן הכעס, והכעס נולד מן הפסולת, החמימות דרש באש דקדושה, כמו התלהבות, ובקאי הגבנה, כמו שכתוב במקום אחר. And it is the quality of Rad Noga, meaning evil of Klipas Nega, which is of the four Klipot. Klipas Nega is the one that has certainly good qualities in it. The example brought is murder. Sometimes murder is permitted. When somebody is coming to kill you, kill him first. Likewise, other examples. But generally speaking, you can't kill somebody without being angry at them. Right now you're angry at him that he's coming to kill you. And these qualities are drawn from anger. Anger, which is the negative side of the Gevuras. And the anger is produced is a consequence of the soilet, the waste products of the hachamimut darash be'esh de kedusha, the fiery enthusiasm of kedusha. Kamo hi itlaavut, like excitement. V'kahaya gavna, kamo shekatuv b'makom acher, as is written in other places. And we'll get to them later. Itlaavut, generally speaking, is excitement. Excitement draws from a specific event. I've just won $500 million in the lottery. Certainly, I'm going to start jumping on tables. Likewise, I just heard that that they counted my grain, and the quantity is very high relative to what I put into it. Likewise, I'm going to be very happy. Ka'as, on the other hand, refers to taking, so to speak, a personal investment in something that happened to you. We can take a short example of this. Generally speaking, when we're in a confined space and we have to back up, the first thing almost anyone does is takes a few steps back and then turns around. Very often, if there's a line, somebody else will be standing immediately behind him. What happens? The first person suddenly starts to back up because he's paying attention to what he's doing. He's not paying attention to the fact that somebody is waiting behind him, nudging him to move. He takes a few steps back and bumps immediately into the person behind him. Let's say the person behind him now has a cup of coffee. Spills the cup of coffee on his foot, spills the cup of coffee on the other guy. Both of them are now screaming at each other, why'd you back up into me? And he says, why'd you stand so close to me? Both of them here have a certain measure of fault. Rational people who aren't so preoccupied with themselves, would look at this situation and say, I should have looked behind me first. I know there are a lot of people here. And you shouldn't have stood so close to me. We both have a measure of responsibility for this action. When we get into anger, anger, as we mentioned likewise prior, refers to making this a personal fault of the other individual. Which, as we've already noted, doesn't help, to put it delicately. And similar to these examples, we can understand Lamala in the upper worlds, Dura de Esav, that the evil of Esav, Haya haritzicha, shiatza Lamala mebechinas apasoil Lamala, mebechinas pasoilis agvuris, Yitzchak de Kedusha. We can understand that the evil of Esav, which was murder, which was the murder which came out of the, which came out in the upper worlds from the quality of the waste, from Yitzchak's holy gvuros, his attribute of severity of holiness. Ki, hagam she'en ra yored milamala, kamo shekatuv lo yigur chara. Because even though that there is no evil, in the world of Atzilut, everything is good. Everything is fully subjugated to Hashem, everything is holy, and everything is connected to holiness. There is no us or them, for lack at the moment of a better English illustration. As it says, lo yigur chara, you don't do anything bad. Aval b'ishtalshelut migvuros tekadusha lamata nasa mizera. However, in the siddur ishtalshelut, in the chain which defines and creates our existence from the gvuros of kedusha, from the holy attribute of severity, down in our world, it creates a perception of evil, perception of those things which stand against Hashem's plan. For the moment, in a simple definition. Vainu, Shamar, Deresh de Esav. To connect this back to specifically to our quote from the Zohar, the Reisha de Esav, the head of Esav, his the earliest qualities which can be identified with him, Klomar Shorosh Makor Chutzvo Lamala, meaning the root of his chiseling above, Huma Atvadi Yitzchak, is from the Atvadi Yitzchak, V'chinat Pasolis, from the wasted quality, the Shenafal Migavoros to Kedusha, which fell from the holy Gavoros, Vainu Hanikra Hatocha Dadava, what's called the slag from the gold, Klomar Pesoilis Midas Edin de Kedusha, meaning the byproduct of the measure of the letter of the law, or the attribute of judgment, of holiness. Ki bedin atzmo de kedusha en bo ra chas v'shalom. Because in the actual quality itself of these severities, there isn't any evil. Aval mebachinat ha'pesolos shabo, but from the waste product or byproducts, from its waste products or byproducts, Naseh ra b'ishtalshelut lamata v'day l'mevin. Evil is created in the world, in the lower worlds, as should be understood. To bring an example here, generally speaking, we say that Hashem created everything. Just like chazir, a pig, is forbidden to be eaten, Hashem still created the pig, and it has a purpose in the world. Nevertheless, we say that eating it constrains and prevents a person from serving God. Various agadot are brought to this purpose, but the pig itself exists for a purpose, a positive purpose. One of those positive purposes is so that Jews shouldn't eat it. And therefore Yerushalayim was destroyed. On account of therefore Yerushalayim was destroyed because they did everything according to the strict letter of the law, even though the letter of the law itself isn't bad at all. And there's not even a slight glimmer of bad, of evil in it. But by means of this, they gave a place to strengthen the chitzonim, those... Generally speaking, the concept of chitzonim, I just want to take a brief segue. Chitzonim refers to those things which are undesirable, those things which are strictly instrumental in nature and not intrinsic in nature. There are those things which we maintain a connection to them because we like them. Our children, our wives, our parents, hopefully also Hashem. And there are those things which we have no real relationship with Him, except for what He's doing for us. Most people could care less about their boss, except for the fact that He's going to pay them. Most people, unfortunately, whether that's good or not, could care less about the mail carrier. The mail carrier brings me my mail. He also sometimes brings me my bills. Likewise, there's a saying in English: "Don't shoot the messenger." When the messenger comes, very frequently the king employs a messenger strictly to bring him his messages. He could care less about him. When it comes his news that one of his provinces is now rebelling against him, there's something of a picture sometimes of the king reaming out the messenger, yelling at him, "How could you do this thing to me?" The messenger really has nothing to do with this. He brought the message as he was asked to bring the message, and the king himself wants to know about this rebellion that he's facing in one of his farther out provinces. But because the messenger is not intrinsically important to him, he may be forced to deal with the problem. He becomes angry and because the messenger isn't intrinsically important, it doesn't matter to him if he gets angry at this messenger. Likewise, let's take an example that is very close to most people. The mother-in-law. There are many things that a daughter can tell her mother-in-law that her son-in-law really can't. The son-in-law says, if the son-in-law said to his mother-in-law, please get out of my life, you're really annoying me, and you're making my wife very unhappy, she'll yell at him and tell him how she's abusing him, how he's trying to separate him from his entire family that loves him and cares about him. On the other hand, if the daughter said the exact same thing, she might start screaming, she might get angry, but tomorrow she's still probably going to get up on Erev Shabbat and bring her daughter a cake so that she can enjoy it on Erev Shabbat because the connection is intrinsic. Chitzonim are those things which we maintain them strictly for their instrumental value. Once that value is finished, our relationship with him is also finished. I'll go back a little bit. אבל על ידי זה נתנה מקום ליניקת החיצונים לקבל מבחינת פסולת זה הדין שהוא כמו רע דעשיו וכו' ודאי למבין. By means of our adherence to the strict letter of the law, we can provide those instrumental elements. In this case, we're referring to those things that Hashem created which otherwise might have been deemed undesirable. Let's say poverty, suffering, all kinds of illnesses. Iran, at the moment, is probably a very good example. It's a group of murderous, homicidal individuals looking to subjugate a large portion of, at the very least, the Middle East. The Saudis are afraid of them. It's not just the Israelis. So by means of reliance on Midat Hadin, we provide a certain amount of support and sustenance to those instrumental, less than positive forces in the world, that they can receive from all of these things which we have declared are not fit. When we push somebody away, there's a prominent agada about, let's not even take an agada, let's take the example of Cuba. Before Cuba turned to the USSR, they turned to the US and said, we want to be a state. Take us for a state. The US said no. What was Cuba's response? They turned directly to the USSR, and now, tomorrow, the dawn rises, and we have the Cuban Missile Crisis. Had the US from the beginning looked at Cuba and decided we have considerable benefit, I can see benefit from taking you in, they didn't have to, but I see benefit from it, the USSR never would have had any reason to pass nuclear weapons to an American state. It doesn't make any sense. But here, the moment that an individual, the moment that we said, we're not going to help you, Cuba was looking for support, financial support, direction, all kinds of things. He said, fine, let's go to the other superpower, who happened to be Russia, communist Russia. And the rest is history. Likewise, we'll take another example. Many times, there are several instances in our history, aside from this example of that individual that was thrown out of a party, that somebody was rejected for some sort of reason, and decided, I'm going to get even. And so instead of coming to help his own country, he decided to defect, turn to the other side, become a spy, and gave considerable help to those forces which were really coming to cause a great deal of grief to his own country. We call it treason. The other side certainly sees that there's nothing more than a little bit of assistance. This is, generally speaking, the idea of Yinika Lichitzonim by means of Midat Hadin. The moment that we set him aside as not good, as being undesirable, he then, he's going to have to join with those things which we decide is undesirable. Every additional individual, additional dollar that goes to these purposes certainly aren't doing anything to further Kedusha, to put it mildly. V'ine, yesh od davar b'midat hadin, shuhu. And now we also have a third quality. We've already listed two. First of all, that the judgments aren't liked, generally speaking, by people. The second one is that by means, when we place somebody in the outlaw status, obviously he's going to have to turn to outlaws for his support, which means that he's probably going to be providing them assistance and joining forces with them. So the third quality we're going to discuss is the pirud, the division which inherently results from an approach of midat hadin. Midat hadin, generally speaking, pays attention to each individual for what he has and defines him by his capacity for something that is undesirable. So we're going to continue. Shuhu agorem bechinat pirud. It is the cause of division. V'itchalkut. And separation, v'itchalkut, and division. Ki b'midah zo yuvdal lev adam mechavero. Because with this attribute, the hearts of individuals are distant, are different from each other, are separated from each other. Ki b'yoto midakdek ala b'midah sedin. Because when he will examine him from a strictly judgmental perspective, lo yimsa kishoron maaseh gam bo'oved Hashem. He won't find him fitting, even if he really is a servant of God. We see many, as an agav, as an aside, we see many examples amongst great sages who, based on the way they spoke about each other, apparently hated each other with a great passion, simply because they were different. The Alter Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe, explains that the reason is because they didn't have any portion in each other's Torah. We say Shivim Panim LeTorah. There are certainly many ways to approach a problem. A famous example is Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Again, illustrating our discussion of Gevuros and Chasadim, of Gevuros and Chasadim, kindness and judgment. Hillel, generally speaking, would take anyone who wanted to learn. You want to learn Torah? Come, learn. Beis Shammai, on the other hand, would only accept a fitting student. He had to have the right pedigree. He had to have the right disposition. It wasn't sufficient that he be a nice boy. It wasn't sufficient that he wasn't a mamzer. He had to have a good mind, exactly the right qualities before they would even take them. Naturally speaking, many people weren't able to study with Beis Shammai. Granted that Beis Shammai were generally speaking much better informed, much more knowledgeable, and much sharper students than Beis Hillel. וכאין זה למעלה, נאמר, הן שמיים לא זכו בעיניו. And similarly above, we have a pasuk that says, even the heavens didn't find merit in Hashem's eyes. Shuhu davka api midas hadin, shuhu midat uemet, which is specifically only according to the strict letter of the law, which is truth. Ki b'midah emet lo yitzdak shum adam. Because according to the truth, nobody will find himself faultless. It says, even tzaddik, there are pasukim that say, there's a pasuk in Koheles that says Ein adam she'ein bo chet, there is no man who doesn't have any, at the very least, accidental sins. And even if they're not really sins in the absolute in the absolute instance, certainly other people could find fault in his actions because of the differing perspectives between different people. ונמצא על ידי מידה זו יובדל לב אדם מחברו. And so we find that by means of this attribute, the hearts of individuals differ from each other. בחשבו עליו מידה זו וכן חברו עליו, as he will think about him with such a particular and exacting measure, and so his friend will look at him. וזה שנה חלק לי במטה, and this is what we say. You divide hearts. חלק לי במטה ישמו. You divide their hearts, and they will blame each other. כי חלק ליבם על ידי מידת הדין, by the means of judgments he divided each person from his friend. Likewise, there are different jobs in the world, and everybody has to be appropriate for a given job. A teacher's perspective is certainly not going to be the same perspective as a psychologist. A teacher is here to see, how can I teach him? A psychologist's perspective is, what's wrong with him? How can I help? How can I teach him to behave better? Even within the disciplines of psychology and sociology. A sociologist, generally speaking, prefers to see individuals as a part of a broader whole. The psychologist could care less. The psychologist sees the other individuals as something other. His principal question is the person as an individual unit. And then by itself, he's going to blame him with terrible things, with things that are utterly not right. Meaning now specifically, ata means now. After you have made people with different natures, different sources in the Ze'eranpin, in the seven attributes of Atzilut, obviously somebody who doesn't have any share in his friend's source is going to blame him. You have kind people, you have severe people. There's Maamar that describes for us that generally speaking, somebody whose root is in the Hasidim, in the kindness, is generally speaking going to be inclined to be lenient. If you want, go ahead and do it, I don't care. Likewise, somebody whose root is in the Gvuros and the severity is going to say, yeah, but it could lead to this, it could lead to this. Generally speaking, this is also a difference between the Haredi, the black hat communities, and the modern Orthodox and the Dati Leumi communities. The Dati Leumi are looking for what's good, and the Haredim are saying, but it could be. It could be. Therefore the Haredim banned the internet, they banned cell phones, all because of a concern of what could be, theoretically speaking. והנה, ההפך ממידה זו הוא מידתו של יעקב. As a closing comment before we start with our next shiur tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem, midato, we're going to contrast this now with the quality of Yaakov. Generally speaking, rachamim relates not according to what a person has done, but rather to his potential, the future. Rachamim is inherent. Midat Din and Midat Chesed is Rachamim. Chesed, generally speaking, is a now-looking perspective. You're asking for it for me now, so fine. The Gvuros, the judgments and severity, looks to what has been. What we're going to explain now, after having explained the three problems with Midat Din, which is the attribute of the judgment, and how this judgment could possibly make it difficult for the world to continue to exist, we're going to provide ourselves for an alternative, which is the quality of mercy, which is called tzedakah, from the same root. And we're going to give ourselves a new interpretation of this pasuk and explain how this quality can lead us to fulfillment and greater revelations in prayer. But I just wanted to leave you before we cut off with that thought that rachamim, our alternative to chesed and midat din and judgments, is a forward-looking perspective that questions itself not what has been, but what could be and what will be, and what is necessary for an individual to acquire that. Thank you, Be'ezrat Hashem. We will continue this tomorrow.